Chapter 9. The miles were adding up. For the past several days, over hills, through valleys, across pastures and streams, John had been chasing the raven, and by extension, the wolf. He figured they must now be somewhere well south of Maryland, maybe even through all of Virginia. Morning was still far in the distance when the raven perched in the moonlight on the naked branch of a dying elm. Stopping in the middle of the night was unusual for the wolf, even with the full moon a few nights away, unless the wolf had found what he was looking for. "A stop in the night, eh?" John asked the bird out loud. He was never sure if the bird actually understood him. Sometimes it seemed to, other times it didn't. This time the raven stayed at its perch and stared down, unblinking, at John in the still night. No squawks. With the raven motionless at its perch, John didn't bother to set up any kind of camp. Instead, he let his axes fall to the ground and sat with his back against a tree, quickly tucking his satchel behind his neck. He gave the raven one more glance to make sure it hadn't moved, then took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Now further south, the nights were warmer, and he was looking forward to his rest. Before he even started to dream, John was startled awake by the raven pecking at his hand. "Already?" he said out loud. He stood and stretched, then paused when he heard a strange clamor some distance off. In an otherwise still night, there was a voice of a man shouting and swearing. John shook off his brief sleep and gathered his satchel and axes. The raven perched on his shoulder, gave a squawk, and took off in the direction of the commotion. John followed. Within a dozen strides, he came upon a fence at the edge of a large, flat pasture. The swelling three-quarter moon gave light for John's keen eyes to behold the side of a barn at the other side of the field, and a little further along, a farmhouse. In the open doors of the barn, the shifting light from a lantern spilled out. A voice yelled, "Get the gun! Get the gun, quick!" A woman ran out of the barn and towards the house, her nightdress making her steps short. John easily vaulted the fence, and his powerful strides took him across the pasture in the same time the woman took to disappear into the house. Turning the corner to the open doors of the barn, John saw that a farmer had the wolf, mouth foaming, cornered inside. "Sir?" said John. "Jesus!" The surprised farmer jumped. He turned his lantern to look John up and down, then quickly put his eyes back on the wolf. "Who the hell are you?" "That don't matter," John said to the farmer. "Let him go." "What? Go? He's going to tear up the calves and half the sheep. Where's that fool woman?" "Let him go, sir," John said. "It's important." "Important? What about my damn homestead? There she is." The farmer's wife rushed into the barn, then startled at the sight of John's massive frame. Mesmerized, her eyes stayed glued to John as she turned the single-shot shotgun over to her husband. "Jesus, woman, watch where you're pointing that thing," the farmer scolded. "Now give me that. Here, take the lantern." The farmer's wife couldn't take her eyes off John, while the farmer couldn't stop staring at the wolf. As a result, somewhere in the lantern-gun shuffle, the lantern dropped, crashed, and broke on the floor of the barn. The splattering kerosene made the flames rise in an instant. "Damn it, woman!" cried the farmer. "Jesus H. Christ!" The wolf, spooked by the burning fire before it, drew back in confusion. The farmer brought the gun up to aim, but the growing flames blocked his shot. He fired anyway. Blam! The shot missed and instead blew a hole in the side of the barn. "God dang it!" He popped open the shotgun and the empty shell sprung out. He held out his hand. "Another!" The farmer's wife looked down at the farmer's empty hand, dumbfounded. "You didn't grab no more shells?" he yelled. "Now what the hell am I supposed to—" John leapt over the flames, pulling his axes from his belt. Locking eyes with the wolf, he made his way to the wall of the barn. With 3 of John's powerful swings, the shotgun hole became big enough for the wolf to escape through. John stepped back and gestured with his axes toward the hole. The wolf looked at his only way out, then with a snarl and a growl pushed through to the outside. John added more swings, and the hole was soon big enough for John himself to step through. Outside, John holstered his axes and watched the wolf as it ducked under the fence at the edge of the pasture. The raven swooped close to John's head and gave a caw as it flew off to follow. John hesitated as he heard the farmer's voice from inside. "Damn it, woman! Water!" Looking back through the hole he made, John saw the flames rising inside, higher into the rest of the barn, lapping at the hayloft above. It wouldn't be long before the whole thing was ablaze. The farmer's voice hollered in a panic. "We need to get to the calves!" John looked across the pasture at the fence where the wolf disappeared. Behind him, the orange flames climbed higher. He looked into the sky at the three-quarter moon, knowing the wolf was getting further ahead by the second. He took his axes out of the holsters again and squeezed the handles, letting his shoulders rise and flex, gathering power from the night. Inside, the flames crackled, and the farmer was trying in vain to get to his calf pen when he heard the splintering of wood. Whipping his head toward the sound, he saw John's axe come through the barn from outside. 2 more strikes, and a hole was made in the stable wall, wide enough for the calves to stream out. Chickens clucked wildly and flew every which way, trying to keep away from the flames. The sheep were bleating desperately, and the horses neighed louder and louder. Over the cacophony, the powerful splintering of wood exploded again, this time coming from the sheep pen. Within seconds, another hole was torn in the side of the barn, and the farmer heard short whistles from outside beckoning the sheep as they pushed through the hole into the night. The farmer himself finally made it to the heifers and managed to get all 3 of them outside in front of the barn before he was almost run over by one of his own mares. As it galloped away, he ran down the side of the barn to find flames filling huge holes cut through the side of each horse pen. The farmer looked left and right, scanning for the strange man that had saved his livestock and in some ways the most valuable part of his entire homestead. He continued to circle the barn but found no one. Looking out toward the edges of the pasture, the farmer only caught the glint of an axe in the moonlight as John vaulted the fence and slipped into the woods. The farmer turned back to the barn behind him. It was now fully engulfed in flames, with his livestock running amok all over the barnyard. The farmer's wife ran up to his side with a single bucket of water, eagerly handing it to him. He took the bucket from her, looked up at the flames of the barn, then down to the single bucket of water again. He dropped it on the ground. "God dang it,"